so your mic's out. You can say hello.
Hi.
Catherine? Eric? We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Just plus 2. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? The rain has stopped, so stop looking good, gloomy. Welcome to the Live Conversations Forum. I want to welcome all of you to the Aga Khan University. My name is Anthony Kagiri. I'm a storyteller, so I'm paid to tell stories. But today is not my day to tell stories. People on stage will tell us their stories. I'm also honored to co-chair the organizing committee of the Live Conversations Forum. As a university, we believe that universities should generate knowledge. Universities should generate practical solutions for life questions. And that's why 2 years ago, we began what we call Live Conversations Forum, where every quarter we meet with relevant stakeholders and subject expert matters, and also people with lived experiences of current issues. As most of you will know, alcoholism is a persistent question in Kenya, and every new government, and I know the principal secretary is here, every new government puts measures to deal with alcoholism. I think somebody said, maybe we should stop fighting alcoholism and start dealing with it. Maybe the problem is fight. And so today we are honored to have very eminent panelists and people who we call subject expert panelists within the audience to be with us for this session. We appreciate Dr. Raymond Omollo, who is the Principal Secretary for Internal Security, for making time to join us. We have Mr. Githua. Because we are talking about alcohol, we want to hear from the people who manufacture it and sell it to tell us what's the problem or what's the good thing about it. And you will be fascinating to hear from Caroline, who is a lived experience person. And of course, because we are at a university, we have good people, serious people, learned people, and Dr. Catherine is one of us. So enjoy the conversation. This is never scripted. They don't know the questions. We will need the conversation about live conversation this comes from the audience. So we will ask you to ask your questions, make your contribution, and have fun while I do it. It's my honor to welcome Winnie to take it up. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Anthony. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bado. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm tempted to do, you know what, usually, places of worship when you go, and then, the speaker, the preacher rather says, "Mtoko kando yako, guza kidogo, mwambie ameamka, amelala." But it's so good to see all of you this evening for such an important conversation that I would say is personal to all of us. I'm pretty sure almost all of us either has an experience or we know someone who has an experience as far as alcoholism is concerned. And of course, this conversation today, alcoholism, we're talking about the sober truth, okay? And I'm tempted to ask, raise your hand if you consider yourself an alcoholic. I know no one will raise their hand, right? But if I ask us, how many of us indulge, even if it's like this much, how many of us would? I like your honesty. That is really good, okay? You would raise your hand. And of course, I know most of us will be like, I'm not too sure the cameras are pointing at us and all those things. But at the end of the day, like we said, this conversation is very personal to us. And I'm pretty sure by the end of the 2 hours or more, we're hoping to have more hours to have this conversation so that, again, at the end of the day, we have solutions as far as alcoholism is concerned. So we have a very able panel, very well balanced, if I can say that. So all protocols observed. I do not want to do injustice to anyone, so I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, and I will begin on my very first lecture.
Thank you so much. Eric Githua is my name. I'm the chairperson of Alcohol Association of Kenya, an alcohol body that represents alcohol manufacturers who believe in responsible drinking and responsible marketing. So looking forward to this conversation.
Okay. All right. All the questions that you have, please do not hesitate, okay, to direct them to, to Eric, all right? And then
I am also a speaker and a recovery coach. Other than that, the reason I'm here because I am in recovery, having struggled with alcohol for 6 years. And I also run a foundation organization called Young Women that assists those who are struggling with alcohol and substance abuse. My passion primarily is here towards women because as an African woman, it's the elephant.
absolutely. So good to have you, Caroline. You know, when we started the conversation, I was about to say, Caroline. But we'll get to hear more from you as well. And what I really like about your story is the story of hope, that it doesn't matter how long you have struggled with alcoholism or addiction, there is a ray of hope. All right, at the end of the day. And that's a beautiful thing to see and to give so many of us who are here and also watching on TV as well hope. All right, I'm gonna skip Piers because and then come to you and then we'll have the Piers.
My name is Catherine Githua. I'm a psychiatrist by training and currently stationed at the Githua University Hospital, where I practice and see patients who come in with alcohol use disorders, as well as other mental health disorders. So I'm happy to be here to give the voice of a doctor or the psychiatrist.
It's really good to have you. And I think the reason why I asked, how many of us consider ourselves alcoholics? No one raised their hand, right? I mean, you're here to also help us understand what exactly defines an alcoholic or who is an alcoholic, all right? And I was also told there's a specific term, you don't call them addicts, okay? We'll also learn about that as we continue with this very important conversation. And Piers, we're gonna have the floor for you.
Thank you, Winnie. Good evening, everybody. I'm Raymond Omollo, the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration. And let me start by, of course, appreciating the university for having us engaged in this topical conversation. Part of my job is to try and keep all of you safe and sane at the same time.
Safe and sane. I really like that. Okay, keeping us safe and sane. Again, there's so many of us who are also watching. We're live on NTV. So for those of you who are watching us live, remember you can be part of this conversation as well. And I mean, if you have any question, any pressing issue, any pressing matter, we have very able panelists here who will help us answer all your questions as far as alcoholism. And today, like I said, it's all about the sober truth. So we're leaving nothing to chance today in the conversation. So engage with us at NTV Kenya at AKU Global, and that is on X. And let's have this conversation as much as we can and as honest as we can. And Bona PS, I'm going to start with you. There was a meeting that happened in March at DP Rigathi Gachagwa's residence, and Interior CS, that is Psychiatrist, said something that I want us to start with. And he said that the government described the current level of trade, consumption, and drugs and illicit alcohol in the country as a national security threat. And that's, including cases of terrorism, banditry, livestock rustling, cultural, religious, political extremism, as well as climate change. So really, how bad is the situation?
I think, first of all, maybe when you try to put things into perspective and also into context, is that we are dealing with a lot of security challenges, whether it's banditry, whether it's terrorism, and probably maybe just to jog our memory, when we had the Western attack, the number of Kenyans that were lost. At around March, when we were having these conversations at the Deputy President's residence, we had lost about 20 people in one village in Kirinyaga. So if you try to put that into context, then you start to appreciate how serious this is. Now, across the country, we are dealing with a lot of challenges around alcoholism. We've had issues of accidents that happen on account of the drivers being drunk. And we continue to lose lives in ways that then becomes a real source of concern, to the point that we are asking ourselves, as a government, if our responsibility is to look after people, what then will we be telling everybody? What then will be saying when the people we are expected to look after are actually not there in the first place? And throughout our discussions this evening, it will be critical for us just to appreciate how bad the situation is. Away from that, then of course there is a illicit trade that happens in that space. So even from a revenue perspective, you have the government not being able to collect what it's supposed to get. From a morality point of view, again, you are having a situation where those who are very minor in age are exposed at a much earlier age. Yeah. And if you look at even the data that exists today, across the country, the first point that Kenyans get into taking alcohol is at age 16. That's the average age. Now, if you look at the numbers, you are having 1 in every 8 Kenyans who partake of alcohol. And of this, about 40%, slightly more than 40%, are addicted. But of course, we have specialists in that space who will be able to speak to us about that. Then, of course, then there is an issue around counterfeit. So there are those who are genuinely doing the business, but then there are others who want to take advantage. And in the process, they make it difficult for people like my friend from Ada here to do proper business in a manner that is then controlled. So, of course, then a lot of this is also on account of either weak regulations or weak enforcement that also happens across the country. And as we speak today, the existing act that controls the sale and distribution of alcohol definitely has certain gaps.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and I'm happy that you mentioned the whole aspect about weak regulations and all those things, because you're here today to help us, first of all, understand why these weak regulations, and yet we have the people to protect at the end of the day, right? But before you mentioned 1 in 8 Kenyans aged 15 to 65, right? So there's an aspect of minors in there. So when you talk about regulations, we also get to really understand, should we have like more stricter measures? How do we protect our minors as well? Because like you said, 16, the age of initiation, that's a very, very young population, which needs to be protected as much as possible. Let's first of all get to understand, so who is an alcoholic? Catherine, or what does that term even mean when we say alcoholism or an alcoholic?
For me, I would rather define this using, what do I say, scientific words or more academic words. I would rather use the word alcohol use disorder in place of alcoholism.
And I'm
it
happy you point that
becomes-
out because we use that
Yes.
term often, alcoholic or, okay, all right.
So that it's easier for me to define what, in this case, you're saying alcoholism. So alcohol use disorder is a condition that we say is chronic and relapsing and varies in terms of the severity. So it really depends on the symptoms that the person who is consuming the alcohol presents with. And some of the symptoms that would guide us and help us know that this person is either having mild alcohol use disorder, moderate or severe alcohol use disorder would include things like using alcohol excessively beyond the amount that you had intended to use. Probably you had said you'd go and have 1 or 2 drinks, then you end up spending a whole night drinking. That would be one of the indicators that there's a problem. Then use of alcohol to the point that it is now preventing you from carrying out your obligations. So there are these duties you're supposed to do, you fail to do them because you're either consuming the alcohol or recovering from its effects, or one of the two is happening. And then when one is not able to now, there's that thing of, I choose to drink this much. Now the urge for drinking is what is driving you to drink. Then there's a problem. And then when you don't drink, you get withdrawal symptoms. So withdrawal symptoms really would vary. I would not go into the details of what they would be. So you find that maybe somebody has to drink alcohol first thing in the morning, so that they don't
We hear that a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
So they don't get the withdrawal symptoms.
All right.
Other things would also include now the relationships are affected, your health is affected in one way or the other. The PS has talked about accidents. Those are happening as a result of the alcohol use. So there's really a long list of symptoms that we look into for us to say somebody is now an alcoholic or is dependent on alcohol. So if you have like 2 to 3 symptoms of the ones I've mentioned, then we say it's mild. If it is 4 to 5 symptoms, then it is moderate.
Okay.
Beyond that, then it is severe.
All right.
Yeah.
There's some people who say, you see, I can't function without alcohol. I have to have it.
Yes.
Okay. Because if I don't indulge, even if it's like this much, I will not function. I will not, and I do not want to put anyone on the spot, but someone said, I cannot even operate if I do not indulge even a little. Someone actually said, I am scared to approach girls, Katia wasichana, because, right? There's that loss of esteem. But if I indulge, I am the most confident person in this entire world. So the big question is then, where do you categorize this group of people who say, I need it to function, all right? But before you answer that, Kagia, I'm pretty sure some of the things that Kathy has mentioned, I saw you nodding, be like, That's happened. A little bit about what happened to you. I listened to your story, very, very powerful story, and the whole aspect about the power of support from family members. But let's go all the way back. When was your first, initiation, if I can say, as alcoholism?
I had my first drink at the age of 19. I had just completed my O-levels. Now I had the privilege of doing my A-levels here. So in Form 5 is where I was introduced to my first alcoholic drink, and it was a bottle of wine. I had not grown up seeing my parents drinking, though they used to drink earlier in their years, and when it hit 1990, they stopped drinking. I was pretty young at the time. And so now the only time I would see alcohol was on television. Because my parents are basically really conservative people. And in Form 2, Form 2 is normally the make or break for a lot of people. Either you become a rebel or you get saved.
True. Or in between, there's no room for in between.
No. Me, I was those people. It's either hot or cold. There was no time for lukewarmness. So me, I told God, I'm getting saved. I never drink alcohol. I never even thought of drugs because that was, I mean, how?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
And of course, I'll never engage in immoral acts, you know? And that was the case.
Yeah.
Then I had also said I'd get to 24 and get married. Those are vows you make before God. Then you hit 40 something and you realize, Allah, you're still single. So then, but I remember I had a very low self-esteem growing up. And unfortunately, there's a very strong correlation between low self-esteem and people pleasing. And so I got into Form 5 and I meet this group of girls and they're so popular, and they're so famous and they're so pretty. In school, children can be really mean, so I grew up being told you're not pretty, you know. And so this girl wants to be my the Carol who gave her life to Jesus.
Yes.
Now this day would mean I put him at the back burner
Yeah.
to do what I need to do.
Yeah. Like, listen, there's a dare here, and I have
Have
to.
watched my story. So I do what I needed to be done, and on Monday I come and report to my friend and tell her I actually did it, and she's so excited. You could think this was for her, and true to her word, she brings me alcohol. It was 12%, red wine, 250 ml, what we call candid. So
I would know that.
yes. She tells me, no, because you told me you've never touched alcohol and you have your own bedroom. When you go home, you lock the door, make sure everybody has gone to bed. Those days, news used to be read at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So she tells me, make sure you lock your door, you open the window because alcohol has a smell.
Yes.
And then you sit on your bed.
Okay.
Okay? Then you open it and take the first sip. The first sip, you should already feel
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Me, I was picked up from school. I went home, I'm vibrating because I'm thinking, if I'm caught with alcohol, it's bad. Knowing the kind of parents I have, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I did exactly that. I've waited for everybody to go to bed. Mothers have a thing of going to bed as the last people. I don't know what to do for in the house.
Make sure all the doors are locked.
The windows, the doors, everything. So me, as Carol, I locked my door 3 times just to make sure it's locked. Then I opened the window, sat on my bed, took the first sip, I hated it. Took the next one, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Then my immediate follower had started drinking before me.
Okay.
So he told me, Carol, the day you start drinking, because I know when you're going to start drinking. If you want to get drunk, you take a gulp, swallow it, and then you flip your head. But if you get a head rush.
I wonder how many of us were told. Like
Yes,
that.
Carol, I've remembered what my brother had told me. I've taken the gulp, done the flip, nothing.
Nothing has happened.
I said, this thing. In short, I finished the whole canoe,
Okay.
feeling absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Then I put the bottle in my bag and I slept and I woke up as sober as a judge. Okay? There
Okay.
is no hangover, there's nothing. And you know, I'm not even thinking tomorrow is a school day, right? What if I'm woken up and I'm smelling funny
Yeah.
or two, I'm unable to wake up? What will I tell the person who's waking me up?
Yeah.
So I go to school and I report and I tell my friend, whatever you gave me, it didn't do anything for me. And she was like, you're kidding. I told her, no.
And you know what? I'm actually curious because it's not a unique case because you hear a lot of people say, I mean, yeah, I take, like you say, gulp or several of those, and you feel absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
And then there's another one who just sleeps, not even taking, just sleeps, and they're all woozy and you know all those things. And I wonder how many of us in the audience. Okay, most of you said we are not alcoholics, we are not taking it. So, so I'm not even going to ask who amongst us has had such a similar experience. But we also have subject experts, and I really want to indulge Dr. Christopher Opio. And this is right after Eric speaks, to really understand, first of all, why is that the case? At one point, one sleeps and they're gone. And you, Kanubu, you're Taimanda, and you're still strong, right? Still standing. But Eric, let's first of all get to understand. So there's that aspect of business, okay? But then there's also this other side of social responsibility. I'm pretty sure lots of people have come to you and told you, Sasa nyinyi muna manufacture, nyinyi ndo mna make sure this thing is already available right here in the market. So it is you partly to blame because of what we're experiencing as far as addiction is concerned. I wonder really what you thought.
Thanks for that, Julie. I think from where we come from first, and maybe also just banking on where our PS has mentioned, if you look at the landscape we operate in, sadly, in 2018, there's our WHO study that was published that indicated 44% of alcohol sold in Kenya is illicit. In the WHO term, it's called unrecorded alcohol.
Okay.
After a period of time, we decided to also do an industry study, and whereas ABAC members, we partnered with several government agencies to just try and identify where are we, what is the state of play. And sadly, the study that we did and completed last year indicated that 59% of alcohol consumed in Kenya is illicit. Imagine 6 out of the 10 bottles you see. That is illicit alcohol.
Very concerning.
And the sad bit, we looked at what are these drivers of illicit alcohol. Of course, we've always said that people are drinking illicit because they can't afford genuine alcohol. Genuine alcohol is too expensive because of the high excess rates, among other taxes that are being charged on it. And the sad bit is that as we see more illicit cropping up, it's actually reaching to a level whereby it's not controlled. Because genuine players like us will use ethanol, we see elements of even methanol happening. And we've seen elements like the sad incident that happened, which saddened us in Kinyaga, where you find people consume something with less with something different. So it's a sad state as a country. The situation would have actually been worse if not for some enforcement activities that have been taken by the government, which we really appreciate when the government takes also these enforcement activities and we support each other. In terms of how to drink and whether to get, others have a headache, there's a science behind it. And I think we have scientists around here, let them speak more to it. But from where we believe in responsible alcohol consumption. Responsible alcohol consumption, and various players have even different, responsible alcohol consumption message. For example, you find situations where we'll tell people that before you even drink, make sure you eat them. While you are drinking, pace yourself with water. After you've done all that, if you are to operate any machinery like a car, do not drink and drive. And it's a message that we communicate. There are some universities where we've even partnered where you find we train the college students at the point of them getting into college, because that's the time most of them, if they're not inducted at home by parents, again, it's a social issue we need to discover and to agree on with parents in the home. Some of them are actually inducted at the point of getting to college. So because they want to look cool, they have seen it, they think it's cool to be that way. But our message has always been ensure that it's responsible.
But the numbers are pretty, 16 years, these people are still in high school. Take Caroline's example, right? These people are still in high school. And I wonder how much control then you have. In as much as, yes, you might say we encourage responsible drinking, we encourage, first of all, understanding and awareness of what responsible drinking is all about. But then at the end, for ground, like you say, for ground between different, right? So I wonder how much control really you have.
So there is a bit where as members in this industry, we try to control as much as we can. For example, some of the safeguards that we've kept is that when alcohol, we actually, most of it is sold through the bars and, the wines and spirits. We encourage the bars and the wines and spirits to always ensure that you can't sell to an underage. Now, sadly, you find there are situations where, and I think as a society, we need to think deeper. You'll find the alcohol is purchased by somebody above 18, will be given to somebody under 18. At times, and we've seen this even during COVID-19 situation where the bars were closed because parents were drinking in front of their children because they're no longer drinking outside there. Now, you'll always have that dadini party, mamini party. How can you tell your kid it's bad when you're drinking it from there?
Yes.
So those are things that sadden us, especially, and we try as much as possible to reduce exposure because this is an adult beverage meant to be consumed by adults.
By adults. Okay. Bonafis will also speak more on some of the laws and regulations and even the Alcohol Act. But before that, Dr. Christopher Opio is among us in the audience. Dr. Christopher, one of the questions that I would really first of all want to ask is, number one, is there such thing as recommended amounts of alcohol? And the reason why I'm asking this is because there's some people who would say, asleep and I'm out. and others would say, Kanudu, I am still standing. So is there such thing really as recommended for amount of alcohol that is allowed?
Thank you. I think there is, this is documented throughout the world. You know that men have a higher proportion that is recommended than women. But again, it's not one size fits all. So you need to understand that these are population recommendations. So we have heard of stories where individuals, you just take one thought, you're dancing on the rooftop. While we have also heard of stories where people would drink, and really there's nothing.
Yeah.
So I think we don't know a lot, but we need to understand more. That's why we try and push. Knowledge is power. We need to understand the situation. We need to understand cultures, populations. Because certain cultures, for example, where I grew up, it is standard to have alcohol in the house. You start with the pot. When you're drinking, it's simple. And if you go to a home and you're presented with a pot and the beer and you don't take it, they'll feel offended. While for others, if you're close to a drink, you'll be a pariah, you'll chest out or something of the sort. So I think we need to think carefully about that. But we go with the recommended, but it's always with the caveat because it's not one size fits all. Thank you.
All right, so what exactly is that? What is the amount that is recommended?
You know, it's difficult because the Americans have changed. The Europeans have different figures, etc. If you go to the Middle East, it's all different. WHO has their own, which is almost similar to the. So basically, they say one drink for women, okay, and 2 drinks.
One drink. One would say one drink is like a whole.
Yes. So when you come to me, I'll ask you. So what do you mean by a drink?
Okay.
Yes. So
Alright.
it's. I say it's based on the culture. So you may say I take a bottle. I mean basically a glass of wine. So I say, how big is your glass of wine?
Okay.
So the figures are there, but I would put a caveat on, they're just guidelines. So you need to think carefully and say, for particular populations, is the physiology different? You may need to revise that. I do not know, I'll push this back to Catherine. Really, do the recommendations really work?
Yeah.
That's the truth of the issue.
Yeah. And
So-
also speaking on sorry, Dr. Christopher, finish?
Yes, so we don't have enough data. We don't do enough research because I would say those who have problems with alcohol and either substance abuse disorders, we don't get enough funding to support them either health-wise or doing research so that we can inform policy. So I would love to see more funding and more support from the producers, from the government, and also from us, and also from the community. So it's not my problem alone, it is everybody's problem, because I see it, all of us have experiences of the good, bad, and the ugly of alcohol.
Sure, yeah.
I could ask you, how many of you have lost a friend or a relative?
Almost all
Yes.
of us have, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
But how many times do we joy over alcohol? We sit, we drink, we are happy, it brings good moments and so forth. So I'll push it back to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Christopher. And crafting, again, just to piggyback on what Dr. Christopher said, in terms of then the tolerance levels, and first of all, what happens to the brain once one indulges, even if it's like this tiny much, because some will say this tiny much, and like Dr. Christopher says, we're on top of the table dancing away that night. But what exactly happens to the brain?
I'm not sure if I need to go into all the details of what happens in
Not
the
all the
brain,
details, but just to help us understand, yes.
but just before I answer that, can I just
Yes.
follow up on what Dr. Christopher was responding to? So there are some guidelines that would recommend 2 to 3 drinks or standard drinks as they are referred to, which would be a glass of wine, a tot of maybe 40% alcohol. So there's that recommendation of 2 to 3 standard drinks for women, 3 to 4 for men. And then maybe when you look at a weekly basis, you'd say 15 drinks in a week and 14 maybe for a woman. So the guidelines are different in different places. I agree with that. But then when it comes to that, there is also what you've mentioned, tolerance. So if you take these 2 standard drinks in a day, you will get a certain effect in your brain, which will not be the same maybe 1 week down the line. Maybe 1 week down the line, you need 3. So then there's that recommendation of not taking alcohol on a daily basis. So there is this recommendation of if you're going to drink in a day, stick to 2 to 3. And then you don't take daily. And then also you don't take the 15 in 1 day.
Okay.
So because the
Just to
people
make
will
that
say,
clear, yes.
I didn't take the one for Monday, I didn't take for Tuesday, so I'll take all of them maybe on Saturday.
The so-called
you know?
social drinkers, where we meet on Fridays. Nationally,
Yes.
it's on what happened from
Yeah.
Monday all the way to Friday.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where now the guidelines have an issue because there are so many loopholes there that people can just say, yeah, I can take all my 15 on Friday. Yeah. So, which is also not good for your system because your body also has to process all that alcohol in 1 day. So all in all, I think responsible drinking really is still a very difficult line to draw and say this is responsible drinking.
Yeah. And you know what? It usually starts with that responsible drinking because you talk to anyone who, again, like you said, the term is from today henceforth, please use this. You said alcohol using disorder.
Yeah, alcohol use disorder.
Okay, all right. No more addicts, no more alcoholics. Okay.
Yeah.
So they will tell you it actually started with a sip. If anything, my parents told me here, okay, so that you hate the taste and all those things and you live it, or you don't experience it outside. Okay. So some people will tell you it started with that responsible drinking. But before I knew it, I got myself into addiction, right? And I'll come back to you to then understand why these are there. Some people get into addiction very fast, and others will drink forever and ever and ever, and still, get into that level of addiction. But let's speak to Bonapiers. I mean, looking at the data that you presented, can we first of all just address the teenagers, the younger population? What do the numbers look like? How bad is the situation? Because sometimes, I mean, they are in school, and I don't know if you saw this. There's a conversation going on online as far as now they are devising other ways of consuming alcohol that I don't think is PG. We're keeping it PG right here. So you might not actually tell that this person is indulging, but really they are indulging. So how bad is the numbers, especially when you're talking about this very age group?
So first of all, when you look at the numbers in terms of the earliest point that we start to take alcohol, so you're looking at 16-year-old as the average number, the average age. So it means it's much, much lower than that.
All right.
And a lot of it primarily is on account of exposure. So either you as a parent, you're drinking from the house, so then the kids get to see that this is a normal thing. Now, kids are going to school, there's a wines and spirits next, the same, sharing the fence, or on their way to school, they see that happening a lot. So that exposure plays a big role in our kids starting to partake of this very early today. And then I did mention about the issue around the regulations and the laws that exist. Not for lack of adequate laws that there's this exposure, but there's a gap in terms of enforcement. So in the licensing of bars, it is obvious that this needs to be within a given distance from a school or from a church. We are not actually observing that. And then you have several players. What we are currently trying to do is to bring everybody on board. So whether it's the person who's responsible for collecting the tax, KRA, there's a person who is looking after counterfeit. There's the county government, whose role is to license the retail operators. You have NACADA within my state department that also has a major role to play. So what we're doing is we have fragmented effort across board. And we're now saying, can we have everybody on board, particularly with regards to enforcement? But also it's a responsibility of all of us as a society to really play our part. So as a parent, how much time do you spend to engage your children on what is wrong? And also just being able to explain why it's not right thing for them to do. What is the role of the church? What is the role of the private sector? What is the role of the people who are actually benefiting from the manufacture and sale of alcohol? And where we are at, we are making amendments to the existing laws so that then it takes care of that. So in the case of the counties, we have agreed that they will collect the money because then that is a source of revenue. But then we will do the enforcement and do the licensing and allow them to take the money so that then it is much neater and tighter. Now, beyond that is that there must also be the responsibility that whatever proceeds we get out of the sale, we dedicate a good chunk of it to go towards rehabilitation, towards public awareness and education as well. And NACADA within our ministry is doing rehabilitation centers across the country. And what we are telling, and the conversation we're having with the county governments, is that at least in each and every county, we need to have rehabilitation center, because there are those who are completely gone to the other stage and they're still part of us. We have a responsibility to look after them. Now, on the illicit trade and on the illicit bit of things, as we try to do the enforcement, and we're in the process of now doing the vetting, particularly for the manufacturers of alcohol. And you'll be shocked that when we set out to do this, out of a record of 63 manufacturers that are on paper, we're only able to get 29 who are actively in operation. Now, out of those, after the first set of vetting, you only end up with 2 who are supposed to do the manufacturing. And then subsequently, the rest have a number of issues that they still need to do in terms of compliance, whether it's the laboratory that then does the assessment, the record on the distributorship, because we need to know from the point that the alcohol is manufactured, the point when it's consumed, there has to be some ownership and some traceability.
Okay.
So we are still in the process of dealing with that. And we hope that at the end of the day, we'll be able to clean up that space.
Okay.
But then there is much more that all of us must
Need to
participate.
do. Yeah. I'm going to throw it just to you, Eric, in terms of tracking, because that is one of the, regulations that the government has set aside, that you need to trace all from a point of manufacturing all the way to your distributors, to actually where this is going. I wonder how that is going and how much control you have, and what are some of the things that you have noticed so far. But before you answer that, I'm gonna say we're taking a break for those of us who are tuning in live on NTV. But remember, like you said, be part of this conversation. Ask any question that you have on at NTV Kenya and at AKU Global. That is on X, and we'll be taking your questions and all the concerns that you have. So we're taking a break. We will see you very, very shortly. But Eric, I'm gonna throw you based on what Bonapies has said.
Okay. Thank you. So in terms of tracking, it's a very important feature, and it's a welcome move by the government to mandate players to do so. And in particular for us as ABAC members, we were already doing it as part of our ensuring that we have efficient process, and the tracking starts right from the farmer. Remember, this is a sector that if you look right from the farming to all the way to the person who's serving, it's a sector that employs over 500,000 people who actively rely on this sector. So what we do is that we have particular standards, and we work with a lot of farmers. Most of our members source their ingredients actually very locally here. So we will have standards that we've asked the farmers to ensure that it's grown at particular levels. When it comes to our factories, we have testing mechanisms, like what PSA, the gas chromatography in the laboratories are actually things for ABAC members they already had. And it has already been, that's why it was actually a very useful thing for the government to ensure that it's now standardized across. So after that, it comes to our laboratories. We're able to ensure we have to adhere to the particular standards. Then our distributors are also known. So it will be sold, the batch numbers are recorded, they're sold to a particular distributor, and the distributor is also known to be selling to a particular area. So if there is any element where you require traceability, it can easily be done.
Okay.
But that now applies to the legal side. Unfortunately, on the illicits, you'd find that at times you don't know their location, they set up shop in readiness for November and December peak. They are highly flexible, they move around, they're not licensed at times, or at times if they're licensed to do one business, but they opt to do another one in the cover of darkness. And that's where now we partner a lot with the government to ensure that we eradicate a lot of these illicits.
Absolutely. And even talking about batch numbers that help traceability, even the illicit ones and the counterfeit ones, right? All of them have batch numbers. And how many people would actually go and screen that and get to see, is this really, not say legal, but is it genuine or not? I mean, because like Pierre said, very concerning numbers as far as the illicit or counterfeit alcohol that is already distributing right here in the market. Before we talk to you, Caroline, allow me to call Mbaka, who is a recovery, I don't want to, I'm now really cautious using the term addict, okay? Recovering addict, but recovering alcohol use. This one. Now I'm being, I'm trying to be cautious, but let me just say a recovering addict. Mbaka, wherever you are, please stand so that we can see you. Okay. Good to see you. Good to see you again. I'm going to say good to see you again because we've had conversations with you as well. We talked about responsible drinking and how sometimes by the time someone gets to that point of addiction, they will tell you, listen, it actually started as responsible drink or curiosity. But I wonder what your story is, and especially as far as initiation.
Oh, okay. Praise God. God is good. All protocols observed. PS, each and every invited guest. My name is Mbaka Mwenda. I am a nutritionist by profession, founder Sober Living Youth Summit, chairperson Graceful Youth Recovery Center, host of Silent Conversations with Ms. Mbaka and a recovered alcoholic. Initiation was very casual. It happened when I was in flying school. I was studying to be a pilot. And I was brought up in a home where everything was strict. Do not do this, do not do that. So when I went into that setup, there was some similitude of freedom. And it was just hanging out with friends. No one put a gun on my head to say, you need to use this. But that's how I just, one of the students I had gotten fond of as we studied, one day just came and asked me if I have ever tried a cigarette and the big one. And I took them and I was telling him I've never used, but I accepted because maybe I just wanted to fit in or something like that. I went, tried at home, cigarette coughed, the big one, I saw my father's house go up and I said, that one I will never use in my life, not knowing it was a gateway of over 10 years of use and finally dependence and addiction. Where we wake up to drink, sleep, wake up to a lock, and etc. So I wouldn't call it responsible. I don't like using the word responsible because how will you, even how can you say responsible and you already know alcohol or substances are psychoactive substances that interfere with your brain, the way you think, the way you make decisions. So let's change that word responsible.
Okay.
Because it's a brain disease addiction. So it's degenerative. It happens over a period of time. And you could be predisposed because of genetics, environment, amongst other factors. And so I always encourage people to also look into your family. You know, is there maybe your grandparents or parents? But many people don't think about that because the alcohol industry is so smart.
Yeah.
They use sober people to advertise their products. And they're doing it everywhere on billboards. They're doing it in the televisions and whoa, have you gone into social media?
Yeah.
So we need to, the responsible thing would be regulation. And I agree with the PS, there's enforcement bill because the law is very clear. It is ADCA is saying this and that, but we have to have collective responsibility. When I say I'm recovering or recovered, I know Caroline, Kagia, and many other people in the crowd here who are openly recovering loud so that people can know we had challenges. real challenges. Where alcohol was priority or the substance was the priority, and we were rejected because of the actions, and we didn't know it was a disease. Neither did the families we come from, and they've suffered as well. Anyone who comes from a home where substance use or is become an abuse, everyone suffers. They're on call waiting to hear if you had an accident, or they'll find your body somewhere. So it's of grave concern. So there has to be, what I advocate for is, can we break the stigma? Let's stop shame. It's not a moral failing. It is a disease, just like someone would have diabetes. It's a chronic disease. Do we laugh at the person who's diabetic and start saying, you took too much sugar or you take so much junk food? So we need collective, all of us in the industry, to messaging and all forms to break stigma and also discrimination. Many people who are recovering from high blood pressure or diabetes, you will find the HR saying, we will give this one a job, but you come and say I have a mental illness, or you say I'm a recovering alcoholic. Already they say this one I can't trust. So those are the things that we want. Why we recover loud is so that we can make it known that there is life after recovery. That it is not a moral failing, and that when we go back to the industry, please, even if we could ban those advertisements, because they're misleading, then we would help our children, because children pick up very easily when they're growing up. Many of them see the billboards, they see pink juice, because now there's aggressive marketing for women to consume. I thank God I stopped drinking in 2016, but I don't think I'll be alive.
The attractive color.
Oh my goodness, it's calling you. It's calling you. So we need to have these discussions, but also action. I know that even here in this meeting, there's coalitions, people who are in the alcohol policy field, in alliances, just here, who are at the forefront advocating against. And the whole one of PS would really, I know there's Nakada, but we would want to also engage further, and how we, as people who are in recovery and boldly speaking about it, be involved with you, so that we can also encourage others who are in that deep place to know there is life after recovery. And number two, it is a disease and there is treatment, and that they can come out. And then with the family and the friends, they can be able to also get the support they need.
And you know what, we'll actually talk about what support looks like. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you would see some family members who say, this person would come, ask me for money, and if I deny them, they would either steal, either from the homestead, or they will go steal someone else's something, okay? Na badala yote wakagongwe huko nje, I'd rather just give them. So one would quote unquote term this as support, but is that really what support looks like? But in a second, I'm gonna open the floor, because I know you have so many questions. I know you're itching to have the mic and all ask all those questions, but I'm just gonna say welcome back to all our audiences who are watching us live on NTV. Remember, we can be part of this conversation by asking all the questions that you have, really, and using the at NTV Kenya, at AKU Global, and those are the X handles that you can use to ask any question, raise any concern, because we have this panelist here, and we also have expert panelists in the audience as well. So feel free to ask any question that you have. Caroline, I know your story is very long. After the Kanudu, did feel nothing went, but so at what point did you get yourself into addiction?
I normally say I was addicted to alcohol from the word go. Because my tolerance levels kept increasing. And so when I left the country to go and study overseas, I moved from the brown bottle to hard liquor. And for me, that's where the spiral began. But nobody seemed to notice it, not even myself. And that is where the problem lies, because many people who struggle with alcohol or substance abuse don't even know they have a problem. It normally takes a third party to see and to raise questions. I remember coming back to Kenya because I'd not even finished what took me out there. And so I come back to Kenya, I straightened up for a bit, joined college again. I didn't drink for about 2 years. I joined the choir in our church, started playing the piano because I'm gifted that way. And then the last semester of college, because I'd earned trust from my parents, I decided to become a boarder where I was in college. And
That is where things began spiraling because all my roommates were drunkards. And so after class on Friday, they would come and then they dress up and go out to somewhere in South B, Kenya Cinema. Those days, those who are in my age group understand Kenya Cinema, the likes of Dodis, those clubs, Winkers, they were there. And then I would sleep with a Bible and I would tell them, "Nini watu wako Keni," in English, forget so. And they'll come back on Saturday with their hangovers and they insult me and they tell me everything until one day I decided, no, let me join these girls. And in fact, that day I even offered to pay cab fare. So we took a cab from South B and we went to Kenya Cinema. We entered Kenya Cinema on Friday, and what started as a soda for me, we left Kenya Cinema on Sunday. Okay. And that was the first time I toyed with suicidal ideation, which is where you contemplate suicide, because my phone has been ringing. I was supposed to be in church. I am nowhere. And that is where you see when you start struggling with anything basically in life, may it be a chemical addiction, which is alcohol or drugs, or behavioral addiction, which is, things like gambling or porn or masturbation, you become a liar without even knowing. And so here I'm lying that, I was sick, I could not come for choir. In hindsight, I was having a serious hangover, you see? And it continued like that. And for me, I think my dad was the first one to notice I have a drinking problem.
All right.
That was back in 2007. And he wrote me a very long letter. And, the tears of a drunkard are always here. They're always on standby. So I remember reading that message and I said, but then I was having a very high-flying job. I was working with an international media house. So I was like, it's my money I'm drinking, not his. So here, ego checks in. And then the long and short of the story is that in 2016, I had been in a very toxic relationship that had to end. And that is the last time I was employed. I was working for a top-tier law firm in business development. And I just quit. And that's another thing with addicts. They quit without being fired, no warning letter. You just wake up and decide, HR looked at me funny today.
Yes.
You don't want people coming so close to you because you know you're smelling of alcohol. Even if you brushed with I don't know what. For me, it became so bad, even my smoking. I had written a book some time back called Still I Rise, where I write, I would spray my mouth with perfume. That's how bad it was for me. So I didn't want people coming close. Even simple tasks like keying in something. Caroline, key in this onto the computer. My brain is shifting, and it's because now I started even moving to lower brands of alcohol. And at some point, I remember my immediate boss at the last place of employment asked me, "Carol, do you have a drinking problem?" And I was like, oh my God, maybe she has smelled it. So even you start second guessing yourself. And I remember after I got my salary, I switched off my phone and I was earning very well. I switched off my phone. I
HR is looking for you.
She's looking for me. I've done that time. My daughter was 6 months.
Okay.
So I've disappeared from employment. I'm in treasure. I've gone home. I'm excited about the salary in the bank. You know, alcoholics. There's this thing of money staying in the pocket. It's impossible. Then me, I don't like paying rent. Me, I officially stopped paying rent in 2019. And not because that I had a home, I just stopped paying rent. I'm not seeing the point of paying the landlord. So I don't see why. So when the agent comes to look for me, I'm hidden under the bed, and I'm earning over 100,000 shillings by the way. You see, but I just don't feel like, why should I pay?
Why should I?
I was even told have a standing order with the bank. But why? But why?
There are better things.
So now 2016, I've ended a very toxic relationship. I've ended my last employment. Now I am jobless. I am manless. I am. Yes.
2 mouths to feed.
I have 3 mouths. Me, my son, and
your daughter.
Now, this is when for me, I think that's when I really knew in my head, Carol, you're sick.
It's a problem.
You see, for me it hit, but you see, it comes. And anyone who struggled with alcoholism here will tell you, it comes and goes. It comes and goes. And as much as I always tell people, your subconscious never sleeps. Even if you sleep with somebody in the same bed, your conscience will talk to you. So now here, because I'm a salesperson by profession and I've been gifted with the gift of the gab, I can sell ice to a slow man. So I decided my sales tactics have to come into play. And this is where you know that alcoholics are also con men and manipulators. Fact. So you call me, I start crying on the phone. My baby has no food, which is true. She has no diaper. We have no food. Oh, we broke up with what's his name? You sent me 1,000. That 1,000 I've calculated already. As long as it says M-Pesa confirmed, you've received 1,000. Those are 4 quarters. Okay. There's my baby who
No
eat-
food factors.
food
If
factor.
there-
Me, I'll eat egg and some mutura from the road somewhere.
Okay.
Done with kachumbari or pilipili. Okay, there's nothing with pilipili and alcohol.
Yes.
It works. My baby will eat Weetabix for 25 bob. I'm deciding whether she'll wear a diaper or a nappy.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and already know nappies give her nappy rash, but then my cigarette brands have moved from high-end brands to the cheap things that I cannot even mention in this forum today.
Yes.
For shame. Anyway, so that's where I've gone, and then people started realizing I think Carol has a problem.
Yeah.
So now there's nobody who wants to give me money. Then one day where I was staying, I discovered a Shylock,
Okay.
and as we speak, he's one of my biggest fans on social media today. And I discovered this guy, he discovers where I live. He's like, oh, you're this and this is daughter. Because my dad is a developer. So we had a home of our own. So I tell him one day, come and give me a visit. Now me here, I'm suffering from withdrawals. People talk about withdrawals. I know withdrawals. And so I send him a please call me. He comes. I ask him, how much is this fridge? And he says 4K. And he take. Next day, how much is this cooker? 5K. Take. Now, in place of the cooker, I bought the small green thing, that one where you put kerosene.
Yes.
Imagine, in a
Stove.
stone house.
Yes.
I'm using that thing outside. My neighbors are wondering, this chick is going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, my son's bicycle, bed, you know, things, the things men normally do.
At some point, you sold doors.
Oh, yes.
Like, I mean, who would think?
That was the end. Towards the end, when I realized now
There's nothing else to
the
sell.
only thing I didn't sell was my TV because I used to hallucinate. I've won money in a betting spot pesa. I've won in dollars. Okay. And funny enough, even before I sold those doors, so that you know the mind of an addict is not like the mind of a normal drinker. I remember that particular night there was on TV, there was this story that came about a particular brand that had killed people in Embu and had made them blind. In my house, I had 4 at that point when I'm watching. You know what I did? I'm drinking as I tell God, God, please.
That's not me.
spare me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Spare
All
me
right.
from this blindness. I need
Okay.
to see tomorrow.
All right.
So towards the end, I remember one day the Shylock called me and asked me, are you home? I told him, yes, I'm home. That time I've sold everything, including my seats. We are sitting on the floor. He asked me, Caro, why do you drink so much? I told him, no, it's because I'm going through stress. And he asked me, then why do you sell everything to me? I told him, I'm going to Dubai. So on his way out, he tells me, hey, Karen, your doors are nice. And he leaves. Okay.
That's an idea in
Yeah, but he didn't stay. So he's left me with some alcohol, 750 ml. Me, I'm sipping it nicely. The day it ended, I remembered what this guy, Aaron, tells. So I send him up, please call me. I tell him, come with your pickup. And I tell him, oh, my house is a 3-bedroom house. Nice doors, everything. I tell him, open up all this stuff. And all. He's excited. He called his handyman. They came there and did all the doors for a measly 500 bob in total.
for all the doors.
For all.
And I know, you know, all of us, we're getting all these reactions, really. We're fascinated. I don't know if fascinated is the right word to use really at this point, but it really goes to show how deep of a problem alcoholism is. And we're talking about addiction in this case, because now it goes just from a drinking problem to affecting all these other areas of your life. And one appears, one would say availability. They are very much available that anyone can access it, whether you are a minor, whether you are, I don't know how many years old, there's availability, and availability, especially for the illicit ones, right? Counterfeit ones, which are very much available. So then when it comes to these laws and very strict laws and policies as far as, you know, caring for this availability aspect of the thing, I mean, where are we as a country?
I think we definitely have quite a lot of work to do to address the issue of availability and access. And that's why I mentioned that it must be the responsibility of all of us so that then we address that challenge.
Right.
And then even when we make alcohol available, then it has to be that which is legitimate.
Okay.
Yes, it has to be something that for those who take, then we don't have situations like where we have people losing their lives. But then also the element of awareness and education must go in hand with all these efforts, so that then people really get to know that whatever they're getting into, these are the side effects, these are the repercussions. And now for those who are now suffering, then we have a responsibility to look after them.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are like then the biggest challenge for the same? Because the laws are there, the policies are there. I mean, someone actually made this joke and said, you know, Kenya is one of those countries has the best policies, the best laws, but then when it comes to implementation of these policies and these laws is where there's a problem. So from your ministry, if I can say, what is the biggest challenge? Why aren't we enforcing some of these beautiful laws and policies that we have? And, you know, amongst them is making sure that issues of counterfeit, issues of, you know, illicit brews and alcohol are no longer an issue right here in the country, and especially in this day and age.
I think we definitely are doing the enforcement, but then just like I've said, we have all these players. So the businessman who wants to make a kill and try to cut corners, the manufacturer or the importer who also wants to cut corners. So in all this, we have purpose to now bring everybody on the table.
All right.
So, for example, even the ethanol that is used to manufacture alcohol, there is what is happening across our neighbors, whether it's in Tanzania or Uganda. So the tax regime need to harmonize all that. Alone, it won't work.
Yeah.
And in the audience who probably knows a policeman, so you've been flagged down, you are calling the PS or you're calling so and so. So that
someone.
Yes. Yeah. So those are some of the things that as a country, we must just be very deliberate and agree that if something is not right, it's not right. And we support the government in ensuring that this enforcement actually works.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to open the floor right now. And again, like I said, I know you have so many questions for our panelists. So we have microphones across. So just stand, please state your name and have your question as brief as possible, because I know so many people have questions. And I also have some of the questions ready from the audience. But for now, shoot up your hand very quickly. Pose your question. All right. We have a gentleman here. Or if we can just do like a line here and a line probably here. So that it's very quick for us to, you know, exchange the mics and answer all your questions. But we have a gentleman here. Please state your name and your question. Keep them as brief as possible. Walewa, swali la kwanza, swali la pili, swali la tatu. Let's just stick to one question so that we allow as many people to ask their questions as possible.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Tony Blair Onyango, a student at the Technical University of Kenya. I'm the chairperson of Onai Comrades Alliance. My question is very short and to the PS. There's something about this draft national government village administration policy, and I'd really love you to elaborate that policy, especially in regards to combating or dealing with illicit brews. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do you want to answer that as we? All right. We have a hand over there. Okay, do you want to answer that as we? Yes.
Yes, so thank you. What is referring to is a policy we are coming up with as a national government to try to support the administration of government services, particularly at the very low level, at the village level. And when you go back down to the village beyond the chief and the assistant chief, you have a village elder. And they play a very critical role in terms of just helping keep our villages safe, in terms of disseminating information, but also in terms of pulling the resources together. And what we see them supporting us beyond everything else, once that policy is enacted, is that then they will help us with the issues around enforcement. Because at the village level, whether there's a changa den or there's a shop, a back street shop that sells alcohol, then we are able to know who is doing what and whether they're doing it in the right way. So to that extent, it will be a plus for us as government in terms of enforcement. But also we'll be able to use them for purposes of creating awareness. Yes.
Okay, all right. We had a hand. Okay, yes. Okay, let's have him first, and then we'll have you get the mic to you. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Otiembo Joseph. I'm a recovering drug addict, and sadly, that drug addiction drove me to crime. So apart from recovering from drug addiction, I'm also a recovering criminal. And just as the story goes for very many of us, drug brought me from teaching at a national school, another school, biology and chemistry teacher, to a wanted criminal in the slums of Madare. That's how bad the situation was. My question is, we have had very many cases of relapses where people leave rehabilitation centers and then they go back to addiction. And most of these things, the main cause of that is maybe lack of follow-up. So my question is, what are the mechanisms maybe the government is putting in place to ensure that at least such the policies and mechanisms they put in place are followed up to ensure that they achieve the intended purpose? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Boniface, I think most of these questions are directed to you. Okay. All right, let's get to hear what your question is.
Thank you very much.
And state the person you want your question to.
I have several questions, but I have
Several. Okay, can we stick to one, please? Yes.
Thank you. I'll come back again. My name is Joshua Adem from Hope Hospice. And my question will go direct to our lady seated direct.
Carol.
Carol.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your bold opening. So, to you, can you share with the audience here that after or as you withdrawing from alcoholism, that instinct that made you to leave the work, by the times whenever somebody looks at you, you feel irritated. Was it from the previous drinking, or is it just within you, after leaving the alcohol, you just feel that thing is still moving within your system? Does it remain in your blood system that it becomes irritated? Sometimes it arises. Or when you leave, you feel you go back to normal. So can you share with us, after withdrawing from drinking, do you feel sometimes like something is irritating you and you become like you took it yesterday?
All right. One of you, do you want to go first and then Caroline?
Yes.
Okay.
So his story is like many other stories. And it speaks to the gravity of the challenge that we are dealing with as a society. You can imagine having been a successful teacher in a national school, you're able to take care of yourself, you're able to take care of your family, and then you degenerate to the point that now the police are running after you, and nobody probably wants to be associated with you. And when we look at this, of course, again, there is an issue of the support system. And this is what I was talking about in terms of whether you're having the rehabilitation centers. And even after that, when someone has recovered, what mechanisms do we have in place for purposes of follow-up and also supporting these people to have a decent livelihood, so that then there's no temptation to fall back what they were used to. Because as you get out of that practice, there are people you are within that space who would probably be urging you on, telling you what you're missing. So there has to be an elaborate program that allows us to follow up beyond stopping from people to get to the point where they're classified as addicts. And as they recover, we must have proper mechanisms of follow-up. And that is what I was saying, that even at the level of the counties, we need to have facilities and a way of being able to trace and follow up and support and keep encouraging. And when we have success stories, good stories like Kata, those stories must be told. And I think this is one of those forums that we are using this opportunity to let everybody concerned and affected know that all is not lost.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Caroline is here. As well as Caroline, do you want to respond to that question? But just allow me to bid goodbye to all our audiences who are tuning in. on NTV. We have to say goodbye to you because I can see 9 minutes to the top of the hour to allow room for 7 p.m. news. But thank you so much for watching, and I'm glad you could be part of this conversation. If you asked your question on our socials, we'll be, reading them out loud, get all the answers, or actually just responding to you directly if you really need to get your answers as soon as possible. But for now, allow us to bid you goodbye. Caroline?
To answer your question, I'll answer it in two parts. Like I said earlier, the mind of an alcoholic or a substance user is very different and very erratic. I would quit jobs for the sake, because I knew God had given me that opportunity of, if I quit a job today, somehow I always got a better job. So that phase of my life ended. And this is where support comes in, because now I no longer drink. But you see, for me, God has gifted me with a brilliant support system. I thank God for my parents. I thank God for all the people who back me up. And for me, as a born-again believer, I have the backing of Holy Spirit. So I'm good to go. But there are days I just feel irritated. You give me a task and I'm thinking, maybe I should just take that vodka. You know, it's a thought that crosses. Anybody who tells you doesn't cross here is a liar. Mbaka, bear me witness. Yeah, anybody here in recovery will tell you there are times those thoughts come and they are fleeting, but there are people who take them seriously, and then you end up relapsing. So for me, I have learned to be very careful about the kind of people I allow into my space. I've learned to take health breaks when they are needed, because if I was to talk briefly on relapse just does not happen. You did not walk into a wine and spirit or a bar and decided to drink. Relapse comes in stages. There's the mental relapse, where you start thinking about the drink. Then there comes the emotional relapse, where you attach your negative feelings to something. And you're like, oh, I'm feeling like this. Maybe I should have a drink, it will calm me down. And then before you know it, you've ended up with a physical relapse, where now you have physically taken the drink. And so you hear people say, imagine he had been doing so well. For 5 years, this guy has been clean. And then one day he just walked into a bar. Then he relapsed. It did not happen just like that. There was a process. Relapse can take up to 2 years before you actually go and have the physical drink. So for me, I've learned how to surround myself. I am very careful about who and what I let into my space. And that is how I've been able to guard my sobriety to date. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And Catherine, just to again pick on what Caroline has said, one of the biggest questions that so many friends, families would ask is, when do we help our loved one seek help? We have people who would force them, into rehab centers, and we have representatives from different rehab centers here. We'll be engaging with them in just a moment. Others would force them. Others would ask, na si uache tu? Kwa nini huwezi tuacha? Like, why is it so difficult for you to quit, alcohol? And others would say, actually, wait until this person is ready to ask for help. So when do you do it? Do you force them? Kitambo, we used to hear stories of people being tied and literally dragged to rehab centers.
Okay. That's a good question, because I would say as medics, we also struggle with that question, because we get it quite a lot. We are asked, should I just involuntarily take my loved one to a rehab? Should I bring them? And if they completely refuse to seek help, then what do I do? For me, I usually recommend that you approach the issue non-judgmentally, first of all, because when the issue of judgment comes in, then there's a complete block and no one wants the help. So finding a way of relaying the message that I think your drinking is a problem, and in a good way. Then if they do agree to get help, the better. Then you can walk with them to maybe a counselor, a psychiatrist, and then they get the help they need. For those who completely refuse to get help, I do feel there's a role of involuntary treatment, and I know this might be very controversial, because then will you watch them die? Because if this person is going to drink, maybe take another drink, they're definitely going to ruin their liver. Are you just going to sit and let them die? In such instances where you see this is too much, their health is really at risk, you can probably take them to a medical doctor or a physician in terms of, I think your health has been affected by the drinking. Let's just go and get the doctor's opinion. And from there, you can start that conversation of rehabilitation. And if that is also not working, involuntarily take them to a rehab. If you feel that this person's life is at risk.
All right.
Yeah.
The biggest question is what exactly happens in rehab centers? Because again, back then we used to hear stories of people being chained, people being caned, people, doing this, all that to help them come out of that, because wameshindwa kuacha on their own, we will force them kuacha. But I'm not really sure that is what happens. And let's have Mr. Japheth Murimi, who's a counseling psychologist from Tigoni Treatment and Rehab Center. Yes, he's just here in front of us, really helping the audience understand. First of all, what usually happens, when one comes to a rehab center? We know about the 90-day period. One would ask, is that even enough? Because cases of, Caroline, and I think one of the audience members asked, as far as relapses.
Thank you. As you've heard, I'm Japheth. I'm a counseling psychologist from Tigoni Treatment and Rehab Center. I'm also a certified addiction professional, and I'm lucky because I'm one in the professionals where being in recovery is an added advantage. I'm 6 years clean now myself, and I've liked that point of involuntary. Thank you. Because if my parents hadn't done that involuntary thing, I was strict, they liked me proper, I wouldn't be here. So I support that. Allow me to start from there, because like counselors, like I am certified counselors, we are equipped, we have tools, we have approaches that we use for clients that are in there for involuntary treatment. Nowadays, we no longer chain people. I've never chained anyone. Serikali.
Yes.
But, historically, there has been stories, even documentaries, some even shot in Kenya, of chaining, of beatings. People used to joke about it and call it beat therapy. So due to the advancement of science and research, what we have now is evidence-based approaches, whether it's for involuntary or voluntary. So with evidence-based approach, there are several evidence-based approaches. The first evidence-based approach that we use and that is recommended is pharmacotherapy, that is the use of medication. The other thing is when you're dealing with people who are struggling with addiction. And by the way, that is a phrase that you use when an alternative for, you don't call somebody an addict, you personify them, you humanize them, you say a person struggling with addiction. When you're dealing with somebody who is struggling with addiction, they are the underlying issues, what brought them there in the first place. And we also have evidence-based approaches for that. We have cognitive behavioral therapy, which goes into looking into the thinking patterns of this person, which also goes into the past trauma that has happened, that has changed the way of thinking and what they do. We have dialectical behavioral therapy. That is to enhance coping skills. And if somebody is struggling with anger issues, I had a question of maybe you are dealing with something and you have cravings, what do you do? We also have that. For the involuntary clients, we use an approach called motivational enhancement therapy or motivational interviewing. That is to say, we don't say this person is in denial. We say that this person has not come to a point in their life where they realize they have a problem, or they may not think they have a problem, or they may not feel like they can do it. So we use an approach to bring them closer to the tools and resources. We also have another evidence-based approach that we also practice, even at Tigoni, 12-step facilitation. There is a history of support groups, but now in treatment, we use the principles of the 12 steps to impact the person who's struggling, that they can change, that they can, their life can have meaning and higher purpose. So those are amongst the approaches that are used now. They are evidence-based. And of course, there was a question on relapse. I think that side. So what we do about that is, and I'll attach that with the question of the 90 days. Number one, let me tell you, there's no magic in 90 days. I mean, that people have done 90 days times 6 times. All right?
Yeah.
So the magic is in somebody's mind, somebody's strengths, somebody's abilities. And what we do as professionals to help the person reintegrate back into the society, to help the person live a recovery-free life. So what we advocate for even in a center like ours is we focus on aftercare, or what we call now continuum of care. That after the 90 days, because let's say it's a government, a civil servant, you will have them in treatment longer than 3 months. Then again, you see, so the 90 days, the 3 months is from a view of number one, practicability and that. But the magic is in what happens after that.
After the 90 days.
The person in recovery is like a baby. They need to be held. They need to be taught new things. Anyone who's in recovery can tell you, we discover new things about ourselves every single day. And sometimes if you don't have that support, you sleep, you think it's happening because you're not healing or because you're not healed. So aftercare really comes in handy to help people in relapse prevention. One more thing I would like to say about treatment shortly is the family side. Because if you come from a family, even if you're not the person struggling with addiction, and your son, your daughter, your father, your husband is struggling with addiction, due to the emotional turmoil that comes with it, the mental turmoil that comes with it, you find that most people develop an urge to save their loved ones. And due to that urge to save them, they also go through their own roller coaster of emotions, and they find that now they become addicted to the addict. Treatment and the treatment options that are evidence-based, we also provide support for the family. Because as one recovers from alcohol consumption, alcohol abuse, substance use disorder, they also need to recover from that, what is called codependency, and you know, so all of that, it is a process, it is a journey. There's no magic in numbers. It's something you do one day at a time. Thank you very much.
I see that. And of course, and that's a really, really good point that you bring up. And even speaking of the same, I mean, because like we said, today's conversation is all about the sober truth, and we're approaching this from a holistic point of view. So we have specialists, we have experts, but at the same time, can we also get to understand the role as far as what, not to say religion, but our religious spaces and what role they play? Because when we talk about stigma, some people would say, I can't even go to my place of worship because I will be turned away, all right? And in the midst of us, we have Reverend Mary Wanjiru Githua from Destiny Recovery Center. Would love to hear from you as far as the role that churches play really in helping, persons struggling with addiction. And first of all, why do churches, some maybe shun away, persons struggling with alcoholism? And what role do they play really in helping them in their recovery journey?
Okay, thank you. I'm Reverend Mary, as you have heard. And the question as to how or why people feel they don't feel to go to their religion or the place of worship, one is because of that stigma. Because I will come to church and you will say, ona ule kijana wa mama fulani. So even the mother herself will feel I'm not comfortable in this place. So what the church now starts doing, or we are starting to do, is to love these people. Because even when they come to rehab, first thing that we show these people is to show them love. Because when they are in active addiction, they feel as if I'm not a person. So even when he comes to rehab or to church, we are advocating that the church to start now looking at these people as persons. And first of all, can you show this person love? Because you see, even there are some things that are triggering our young generation to take alcohol and drugs, because maybe of where they are brought up from. You find that the family that the person has been brought up from, it's not the conducive environment. So sometimes you find that love is lacking to that person. So most of the times you find when these people comes to you and they will tell you, Pastor, me, I'm doing this because I don't understand. My mom does not love me. My dad does not understand me. So first of all, even us who have those people, we need to show them love and don't judge any alcoholic or those people who are using drugs because they are persons and there is something that is making that person to take alcohol or another drug of choice. So first of all, we show them love. And then the other issue is the church. Majority of the people who are in the church, they don't know and they need to be taught from the government side and even from us that we are talking now, that we are in this show, we need to show them and to make them understand that alcoholism or this is a disease and it is a disease to everyone because as our panelists are said, Carol, that when she was in that disease, everybody in the family was sick. Because when this disease comes in a family, everybody is sick. And this is the only disease that the person who is involved in it, he does not see any problem. The third person is the one who sees the problem. You find another is sick because his son is taking alcohol. Lakini kijana akikuja na mlizama then nini? Unaweza kwa sababu yangu mimi mtu mzima. We see because the mother feels the pain. We see, and even when they come to my room, first of all, I treat the parents because they are the one who are sick. And whatever the government is doing, you need to do more because we are treating even the lifestyle diseases, and some of these diseases has come because of the children, because of the way our children are growing up. So we need to teach the people in the church and to teach them each and every minute because they don't understand. And you see, even in the African society, you find old men saying, kwani sisi hatukunywa pombe na tukafanya kazi, kwani hii yenu ni nini? So with that mind, you find that it will take us a very long time or a very long duration for this thing to curb this alcoholism. So we need to make people understand from the church perspective. From the church perspective, let them understand that this is a disease na sio kujifanya, because they are saying our people wanajifanya.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Or sometimes try to pray away the condition, which majority of the times it doesn't really work because this is a disease. It's not a choice that this person has decided. Okay, I'm going to drink and I'm going to drink forever and ever. Doesn't matter what you tell me. Thank you very much, Reverend, for that. Eric Sijakusahau, so many questions for you. And there's this one from the audience who says, to the chairman, the Alcoholic Beverages Association of Kenya, given the significant impact of alcohol consumption in public health and social well-being, how does your association plan to contribute to initiatives aimed at promoting responsible alcohol consumption? Now I'm being cautious about responsible because Nkata said, listen, can we do away with that, that word, responsible? All right. So continue to say, yes, and initiatives that are aimed at promoting responsible alcohol consumption and reducing alcohol-related harms in our society. The second part to that question is, would you be having clarity on the utilization of monies from the taxation on and licensing of alcohol to increase awareness? I don't know if I read that too fast.
Thanks. I think for that, I think I'll start with the first issue and maybe I'll link it to what Mbaka said. There are several things that we do to ensure that we have responsible sell and advertising. And it might not be so obvious to the audience, but I'll give you, for example, you'll find that for ABAC members, we have a responsible sell and advertising code of conduct. And if a member goes against that code of conduct, we keep each other in check, we keep each other honest. And if a member goes against it, because our members at the end of the day are competitors to each other. So if you go against it, there is actually a very punitive way which we've self-regulated ourselves. For example, some of the things you find in that responsible marketing code of conduct will provide that for any person advertising alcohol should appear to be above 25 years. And you'll find that it's even if somebody is 27 and has a baby face, they lack actually employment in advertising of alcohol. You wouldn't see alcohol being advertised in a way whereby we are two people seated maybe with Carol and we have 5 drinks, 7 drinks. The the bottles are just filling up the space because that's it's irresponsible. So even how you advertise it, it shouldn't be one that is promoting binge drinking. We are also very quite clear that there are programs, like for example, you'll always say we can't advertise and have somebody drink and then be shown as a character going to drive because that's against us. There are simple things. Even the time to which we advertise, alcohol advertisements will always come past 10 p.m. And in the social media space, alcohol advertisement will always be done by social media influencers who are known to have an audience of above 25 years. So
how do you measure that? How do you measure that?
There's a way. So how you can be able to measure it, for example, you find if it's a certain set of, let's say, a musician doing a certain advertisement, you look at this musician, for example, if they sing a certain genre of songs, they might attract a certain age set of people. So you are able to know that. There are also data that you can get from people like Meta, where you can be able to see what is the age set on the viewership. And some of these people, even YouTube, can be able to give the data, and the influencers are always happy to showcase that my viewership are people be above the certain age set. So that is something that we are always critical and very keen on to ensure that we reduce as much as possible exposure. We, however, understand that there are instances where you might find a child accessing social media sites using their parent's phone, or the parent is the one who has registered. So in such an instance, it's very hard to measure because at that point, all the data indicates that this is access to an above 25-year-old, but unfortunately, it could be a child using their parent's phone, or they are even given the phone by the parents. So there is also a responsibility for all of us in the society to ensure that even when we are giving our kids, phones, what are they looking at? Because you've given them a phone, you are the one who has registered the account. All the data indicates that it's an above, maybe it's a 40-year-old accessing, but in the reality, it's maybe somebody who's 16, as our good PS said. So those are things that we try to ensure that we try as much as possible to push for that agenda and ensure that exposure is only limited to people above the age of 18. And in addition to that, you'd find that when it comes to taxes, indeed, we are among the largest taxpayers. If you look at the direct taxes for a very value brand, and the value brand, it's meant for mwananchi wa kawaida. You'd find like excise tax and VAT is about 49% of the recommended retail price, and there are other indirect taxes. And there is actually a very big correlation with taxation and illicit. For example, if you go to countries like Uganda, Tanzania, they have never increased their taxes for the last 5 years. You'd find the level of illicit is not as much. And maybe using our good friend Carol's story, where you find at times when somebody is having difficulties in economic gains, or they are not able to be well up at that point, they go for anything that is cheaper. So you'd find that person, apart from alcoholism, since we've said maybe somebody struggling with that disease, they're also now getting disposed to other things like methanol, because probably what you saw on the TV was actually a counterfeit. And because the counterfeit is available, you're always finding yourself that you are predisposed to now other forms of disease, which is very unfortunate. So for us, we will always appreciate if the government can look at what is that right tax regime, and if that fund, because the government gets a lot of taxes from our sector. If those funds can also be used in the private sector, I think it's a welcome really for the society.
I see that. I saw you actually writing for you.
Because you say this thing of you normally look at whoever you use as your brand ambassadors. When you look at these brand ambassadors, do you look at their history? And the reason I'm asking is because I know two people. One is dead now. I cannot mention him for many reasons. He was made a brand ambassador of a certain alcoholic beverage, yet himself was struggling with alcohol addiction. I know another one, my own brother, who was supposed to be made a brand ambassador of a certain thing, yet he also has a history of alcoholism. So before you get these people, because I understand you pay them very well, but do you look at the history of this person, or is it for selfish gains for you so that your product sells, but this other person, as much as you're giving them so much money to cater for their bills and whatever, that is the beginning of the end.
Okay. And even on the same, and especially you talked about data and how you're able to certify that data, but also remember, some of this data can be bought. Someone can come and tell you, listen, my audience is between 25 and this. But when you look at some of the people who follow this, they're very young children, if we can say that. So, that aspect of certifying that really this person is over 25 or their audience is like over 25 or let's say over 18, I just feel there's a bit of a gap there. But again, yes.
And thanks for that question, Carol. True. We try as much as possible to ensure that you do a lot of research on who you engage. And even as a responsible brand owner, or even any other thing, you wouldn't want to know somebody who's associated with criminal activities. You wouldn't want to have somebody who's associated with something which is anti-laws of the Republic of Kenya or the society they serve. So we always do that, but we all understand that at times, in those cases, not everything could be as evident. Now, what we do to ensure that even when working with them, most of the brand ambassadors will be trained on what they can post. And you'll find even the posts that they're posting, some of it are approved by members, our members, the person who has been. So you'll be told, this is what you can be able to post. This is the timing also you can be able to post. And you find in most of those instances, that is to ensure that somebody who's posting is well educated. And our members have different things that we even take them. For example, there's a program like Drink IQ, where even the persons have been told, this is how you can't post yourself having 10 bottles and tell people, let's drink. For us as responsible businesses, we are in the space of long-term views. Some of our companies, some of our members are actually over 50 years in the country. And if you get to have a population that is just binge drinking, it's actually a not responsible business practice. But if you can have this population that is there, because you're also part of Kenyans, at the end of the day, we also live in the society and we're not happy when we see a lot of this binge drinking or the illicit trade that is taking place. If we have a population that drinks responsibly, like we've seen in the other outside countries, you go to, like European countries, well, it's normal to have lunch and have a glass of beer or wine. So if we can be able to continuously, and all of us in this audience, drive that message that it should be okay, but you should know your limit and just drink responsibly, it's actually a better, even from a business point, it's a more sustainable.
Okay, Nkata, I'm curious. You're still all about. Okay, I'm going to open the floor for all your questions in just a sec. But Bwana PS, again, he mentioned about the rehab centers, but government funded rehabilitation centers. The numbers, one would say, are very, very low. Most of the rehab centers that we have are private owned centers. So what is the biggest challenge? Why don't we have enough rehabilitation centers that are run by the government? And also the whole aspect about treatment. Can we have NHI, for example, cover the costs? Because it can be very expensive to actually treat.
Yes, so first, of course, the numbers of rehab centers we have across the country is not adequate. And part of the engagements we are having, particularly with the county governments, and also even the existing hospitals, so that then we can have wards designated to be able to handle recovering addicts or those who suffer from what you maybe then call irresponsible drinking. If I speak to what Kata is passionate about. And with regards to even the cost of treatment, because this is a very specialized group that needs very specialized attention in terms of even the training of the psychiatrist or people like our friend from Tigoni. There has to be that investment. And with the changes we've seen in NHIF or universal health coverage.
SHIF now.
SHIF, yes.
Yeah.
Is that now we are having the provision to be able to expand part of this cover to take care of, because we are treating this as a disease. Yes, so that is changing with the new regime on personal health coverage.
Absolutely.
Yes, and maybe the other thing is we still also must encourage the private sector and also the faith-based institutions also continue doing what they're doing. And it is something that we appreciate as a government.
You know, government always say, you know, we can't work alone. We need the support of this. But then again, the government sort of like needs to set the pace.
Yeah, so we have that responsibility, and we are setting the pace in terms of making amendments to the regulations, in terms of cleaning the space. I've spoken to the vetting that we are doing with alcohol manufacturers, but we are doing much more than just alcohol. We're also looking at the other drugs, psychotropic substances. So all this is geared at making sure that people then continue or decide to partake, then they do it in a manner that is sustainable, even those who are in the business of manufacturing.
Okay, all right. We have a question for you, Catherine, and then we'll open the floor. So this one says to Dr. Catherine Mbaka, the consultant psychiatrist at Aga Khan University Hospital. Could you elaborate on the challenges and opportunities you foresee in integrating evidence-based treatment, which you alluded to, and prevention approaches like harm reduction for substance use disorders into mainstream healthcare services to increase access to care in Kenya? And what strategies do you recommend to overcome these challenges and enhance access to quality care for individuals struggling with addiction? Loaded question.
Okay. Thank you for that question. It's a question I feel we need to do a lot of research in. And as we even talk about, you know, setting up rehabilitations and all these other structures that are being put in place by the government, I feel there's need for a lot of investment in research so that we can also look at our own evidence within our country of things that will help us reduce the relapse rates. Because yes, the rehabilitation centers are doing a good job. They're using evidence-based techniques and even following up with aftercare. But even you'll see a patient who's come in, who has gone through all that process, will still have periods of relapse. And here now, I feel the main area where we can target as well is the community, because this individual is leaving the rehab and going into a community. So what facilities can we set up there? Is it involving the church? Is it, you know, involving these different social groups within the community that can help this person recovering from alcoholism in terms of the activities that they can utilize or participate in within the community once they leave the rehab. So I feel in that we need to conduct a lot of research and come up with strategies that would be evidence-based from our end, because again, we are relying a lot on information or research that is done in the West. So in Africa, in our own setup, what can we do? Looking at maybe in the past, you've heard wazee saying, hata wao walikunywa, but hawakunywi kama wa sasa hivi. Is it because there were structures then within the society or within the culture that prevented people from now over using alcohol? And can we then make use of those structures that were there then? Can we go back to our cultures and see what mechanisms were in place then that helped people not become alcoholics as we are seeing now? So that then, as we are now in the hospital treating those who are coming in with severe alcohol use disorders, are sending these patients to the rehab. And then once they leave the rehab, then they have a community that is able to support these people who are recovering from alcohol use disorders. So I feel right there, there's a need to collaborate all the way, and so that we are referring to rehab, and rehab is then referring to the community. And then we can get information also from the community on how our patients are doing. Because what happens is most of the time, I will treat a patient who is coming with a severe, maybe alcohol withdrawal, send them to rehab. They'll probably go or they may not go. And then the next time I see them back again in the hospital, treating the same thing. So it becomes just a cycle of, you know, just treating severe withdrawal symptoms or other complications from alcohol use. So there's need to integrate all of us work together. What the community is doing, what the rehabs are doing, and what we are doing in the hospital, we need to have a good referral system, both to and back to the hospital when there's a problem. So a lot of research needs to go into that so that we can see at what point we need to do what.
Absolutely.
And who can maybe do what activity. We have community health workers who can also be very helpful in the management of alcohol use disorders as well. So as we are also embracing the universal health coverage, I think that should be one of the priority things that should be considered in terms of managing the alcohol use disorders as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Carol, we'll come to you to, first of all, address the whole aspect about stigma. And this is both internal and external, and also what support looks like. Because aside from your beautiful story, like we said, of hope that listen, there is always, hope after this. This is not the end. You always come out stronger. What does that look like, and how can families then chip in to support? Because like I said earlier, there's some people who say, na wewe tu usiwache, mbona huwezi acha, na mimi aliacha, mbona wewe usiache, and others literally drag those people to rehab centers. So then what does support look like for a person who's struggling with alcohol addiction? But before that, let me open the floor. So many questions I can see. Yes, so please shoot up your hands so that's all right. Oh, Nkapa.
No, just
a comment, yes.
I want to acknowledge the latest alliance. It's called Kenya Alliance Against Drugs, and it is led by Franklin Okoth, who is here. And what has happened is he's a recovered alcoholic. He's a civil society member. And what has happened as a blessing is there's a woman representative of Nairobi who has had plights, or he's been able to speak to quite a number of legislators, and she was able to open her hands and say, you know what, why don't you form an alliance of different civil societies, and we can be able to use these resources, maybe in GAF and all these resources, so that we can help the people in recovery, and we can also do the campaign. And I'm extending this, to the PS and to the government. Let's do such things, because people who have walked that journey can talk a little about it. And we're not promoting alcohol use. Being in recovery is the most challenging thing. And the number two, in Ghana, they had to ban advertising, and they do not allow any harmful products to be advertised, and especially by celebrities. Many celebrities don't even use those products. Or we have seen in full glare, celebrities known as like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston died because of overdose. So in as much as this is business, with all respect, Mr. Chairman, for the Bar Association, I understand it is business, it is legalized, but it is a harmful product.
Yeah.
Just as tobacco was regulated, and I know it took 9 years of battles, people died, we know that. But today, we do not see any advertisement of tobacco. Even today, what they are forcing is to show the graphic pictures of the effects of tobacco, which also Dr. Opio can be able to tell us what harm does alcohol use. So we can glorify it, we can say it is normalized, but the real thing is it causes so much harm. If it can lead you to rehab, if you're hearing about relapse, then you need to have serious conversations on how to protect children, to protect society from the harm. We'll call you big alcohol. The manufacturers who have all the money, they're able to generate a lot of income and run this economy, because we know those are the ones who are the highest taxpayers. And then finally is also to mention that recently we've seen taxes have been reduced for beers. How? It should be increasing, because it has been shown, scientific evidence-based, that when you increase taxes, then people will stop drinking it. But I know there's an argument that people will go to illicit, but then again, back to enforcement so that we regulate those illicits. We would want you to reconsider. Really, these taxes on alcohol, let's increase them so that they can be, if we say banning, even the better, but that is not up to us. But there's so many things that the World Health Organization is advising us, and there's a safer program that talks about increased taxes. It talks about the rehabilitation. It also talks about the advertisements. And have we talked about the road carnage? Most of the accidents are because of people who are under the influence.
Yes.
So alcohol really is causing so much harm. And people don't have to go to the illicit brews. We have CEOs today, even people who run governments, who are presidents, I don't mention anyone, but we have seen them struggle. Someone would come out to give a public address as a whole president, but the conversation is, do you think he's taking illicit? No.
No.
It's the adverse effects of alcohol. So we want to work with you. There are so many people here in alcohol space advocating against, and we won't start promoting alcohol or saying nice things about alcohol. We're looking at the future. We're looking at posterity. Changes may not happen now, but for our children's children. That's why we are saying if tobacco control is possible and there's an act in government, in parliament, there's a law that says you cannot advertise. They're still being sold, but they're regulated. Let it also happen for alcohol. Someone like Carol, who is seated there, myself, or Franklin, or even the young man who talks about crime. Crime goes hand in hand with drugs. And we may say, oh, it's not affecting me until they come for your car, they come to rob you because they want to satisfy their drinking, and they have no source of income. So this is conversations that need to be had, and we are open to work with you. And yes, highlighting the effects of alcohol is very important because it causes more harm than good.
Yeah, that's what we think goes just beyond taking alcohol. All right, very, very amazing sentiments over there. By Nkata, thank you very much. We have a lady. Oh, okay, we have two questions. Back, I can see our time is far much spent, but yes, we can spare a few moments if that's okay, Anthony, to finish the conversation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Catherine Bikeri. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I also work at the Brain and Mind Institute at Aga Khan University. So I know what we need to put into treatment. I know today we are talking about alcohol use disorder, but I'd just like, Dr. Catherine and Caroline to also reflect, because the journey into alcohol use disorder, it's a slippery road. Like it begins somewhere before someone gets into it being a disease, we can see it progressing. And the cost of rehabilitation, the cost of treatment, as we can see, and the policies that need to go into it's a whole big cost thing. Can you also please talk about how do we avoid getting down the slippery road, also combining it with how alcohol co-occurs with other mental health disorders? If you can highlight on that so that we understand really the effort also needs to go into prevention, not to go down that path. Please highlight on that.
Okay, and then there's a gentleman, yes, he's just in front of you. All right, let's keep our questions very short. Our time is really, really how much spent.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, yes.
Me, I will not ask Eric any question. I want to confront you and tell you that your association has failed Kenyans in this regard. How do you ensure that there is traceability in terms of the content that is being produced in the company and what you are taking in the local liquors? Many a times you might check into a joint. Maybe today you are served a Jameson. You will feel the effects in the morning. Tomorrow you go to a different joint, the effects are different. Meaning you might have taken a content of chrome and maybe another cheap gin, thinking you're taking Jameson. So I think your manufacturers lack the element of traceability in terms of the content we are taking within the local liquors. To P.S. Omollo, the first miracle that Jesus performed was to turn water into wine. And the coming of Jesus was an established of a government. He came with the laws, and taking of that wine was in a wedding, and it marked the sanctity of that wedding, and people really enjoyed. Now, establishment of every government after every election is to ensure that the government protects the people from both internal and external aggressions. I acknowledge that you guys have invested so much, and in fact, I saw Kindiki receiving some of the arms to protect us from external aggression. But we are forgetting that alcohol is killing more youths than how terrorists are killing us. So what structures are your government putting in place to ensure that you're protecting the local consumers. For example, are we winning the war when it comes to the cyberspace? As of late of last week, I saw a former media personality who is going through something now. I don't want to mention his name and the media house that he worked for. And he was smoking marijuana publicly. Then he posted on TikTok. Then Obina hosted him, which is still asserted that indeed he is smoking. So is the government handicapped when it's handling the cybercrime?
Okay. All right. Very good question. Okay. All right. Bonapies, we have another question. Okay. So as we get the mic and then we have, hey, okay. All right. People wait until the end of the conversation to ask questions, but okay, we'll give you a chance. 10 seconds, if that is okay. All right. So very quickly, keep your question as short as possible.
Just two as short as possible.
We two. One.
As short as possible. One to chairman and one to PS.
Okay.
So my name is David, National Coordinator on Commerce Alliance. Actually, the topic is very important. We also advocate for zero substance abuse for comrades. My question goes to PS1. I struggle to understand what my sister said, that why would you hike access on bread and then lower taxes on alcohol? So somebody will do an alternative of taking alcohol more than bread. Then two, my question goes to the chairman. If actually alcohol is bad, why can't you, when you are doing advert, why can't you use the customers? Those people at the bar there, so use them at the advert to tell people that actually this thing is wrong.
Yes.
Before you go confusing people of good people, good things. That's you good people there. So that when I see you say, no, if it's about getting into trenches, then I will not take alcohol. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, we had more hands up. You asked the question. Please allow me to have someone else. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Duncan Moreno, founder Amazing Minds Africa. We deal with mental health promotion in campuses. And I come from the Mount Kenya region. And as people know, one of the most affected areas in this country when it comes to illicit brew is Mount Kenya region. People my age, they're in spaces where, if I tell you I was in school with this particular person, you wouldn't believe. Because one thing is, they're not able to cope with the challenges that come. And in the mental health space, we've realized that when one is not able to cope with challenges, we jump to different things. For some, it's alcohol. For others, it's, name it. And you find that all these things they're jumping on, it's mostly illicit brew. Now, the question is this, and it's a challenge to the government. Yes.
Yes. All right.
Most of these people, if you tell them to stop drinking, they have nothing else to do. They have no jobs. They'll just be seated one night at Bunge, somewhere, they'll just be seated there. And then when a kibarua comes, a man is going to come and call them. He or she needs someone to come and dig the farm. At the end of the day, they are paid 300, 600 shillings. All that money goes straight to the local pub and they just end up drinking. So my challenge is to the PS and the government in general. And I like the question that he did ask. This is a hustler government. Yeah. That particular person who's down there, because even if they ban these products and they're not getting to these people, they cannot find access to it. But we're bangi wanasemanga kitu moja. If I smoke and I move from here to Kisumu, in 2 hours, I know where to get bang. I know samahali. So even these people, even if you ban that product, and you're not keeping them busy, because I'm talking about the youth. They have energy, they're very active. If this energy is not directed to anything else they can do to occupy them, whether it's sports, whether it's farming, whatever it is, then so to do it, it's not available, but that person still has energy. But go to Beverages just to access the same product.
Okay.
The challenge to the PS, what is the government doing? Actual steps to actually ensure that it's not just banning the product, but directing the energy of these particular people to other things that are going to help them in the society. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's answer. Okay. Very quickly, and then we answer those. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Faith Nkatha Mwenda. I'm glad I have my namesake here in the room. Okay, my question goes, I don't know, to Mr. Yes,
Eric.
Mr. Eric.
Yes.
Okay, what are you planning to get rid of these illicit or counterfeit alcohol, because it's unhealthy for our for the consumers?
Okay. All right. Well, yes, let's start with you.
So thank you, and quite a handful of questions.
Yes.
Maybe let me start with what we are doing as a government, just address some of the push and pull factors for the young Kenyans, particularly those who are out of employment. We need to broadly look at President Ruto's agenda in terms of job creation. As we speak, there's what is happening within the digital space, where we are creating digital hubs in each and every ward across the country, so that then as you leave school or as you leave college, you have an opportunity to use your knowledge and talent to at least earn a living, so that then you are not having all the time to yourself, not having something to do, and then it becomes very easy to get into alcohol or into drugs. In the affordable housing program, and the president is very passionate about this, and this is happening across the country, wherever you move around. And for every housing unit, you have an opportunity to create between 5 to 7 jobs. Now, these are opportunities that the government is creating, so that then we don't have an excuse that the only reason why people are drinking or and get drugs is because they don't have jobs. And the truth is, unemployment is a big challenge to this country, and it is a ticking time bomb that we must deal with. Now, as a Ministry of Interior, while we look at alcohol and drug abuse as one of the biggest threats to security, just like we are treating banditry and terrorism.
Yeah.
And maybe just to my brother there, yes, we are investing huge amounts of resources to equip our police to fight bandits, to fight terror. We are actually doing the same to invest money to fight alcohol and drug abuse. The amendment that we've taken to Parliament as we speak on the Alcoholic Drugs Control Act is to make it mandatory, particularly for the counties that are in charge of licensing the retailers, that money is ring-fenced for purposes of addressing the gaps that we've all spoken to, whether it's awareness, whether it's rehabilitation, whether it's public education, as well as enforcement. So all these are going to help us address the gaps that you've spoken to. Now, the question about taxation, and I think you can look at it depending on where one stands. And the whole essence is that one, we need to control the consumption of alcohol. And that speaks to the aspect of us being able to tax it. But then there is also the issue of availability, which must also be balanced. So there's a beer, but then also there's the hard liquor, whether it's the spirits, which is the biggest culprit. So that then we don't make it easy, particularly within the spirit space, for people then now to start counterfeiting. Beer is not very easy to counterfeit. And if you look at it, someone was asking about what used to happen where our fathers or grandfathers say they used to drink and it wasn't an issue. A lot of that was more of social drinking, and a lot of that was beer drinking. Now, the problem, particularly in a space like Kenya, a lot of that illicit consumption, it's a spirit, which in most cases is illicit and is adulterated. In terms of, there was a question around, there's alcohol and then there's a mental disorder. There's always a correlation. Either you're getting into alcohol to deal with whether it's depression or to deal with something that you're emotionally struggling with. So we need to invest a bit in terms of the professionals in that space, whether they're psychiatrists, whether they are just the doctors, and also a lot of research must go into this. And for me, this is why institutions like Aga Khan come into play, and the other faith-based organization, so that we are able to get and accumulate as much data as possible. We've just shared data that came from NACADA that actually graphically tells us how bad the situation is when you look at the numbers. When you're talking about excess of 4 million Kenyans, that's not a small number, and close to half of those are struggling with addiction, for lack of a better word. Then last point for me is in terms of advertisement. We need to control that space, and we must agree with ADAC that advertisement must be controlled. But then there's also what is happening in the cyberspace or internet advertising. So that is it possible? How possible is it for a young boy or girl to go online and is able or she is able to see where to buy, and they're able to purchase that online? So we have the act that deals with cybercrimes of 2018. 2018 and today a lot has changed. There is new technology, and we must constantly try to keep pace of that. Parliament has just passed regulations to Operation Without Act. That was last month, and we are in the process of also now trying to amend it. But at the same time, we are already enforcing it, albeit with challenges because of the ever-changing technology from day to day. The last point for me again is there has to be commensurate investment by government, but also by the private sector, and also those who benefit from this trade, so that when people consume alcohol, then they consume it in a much more responsible manner, and then we insulate and protect those who are underage not to participate in it.
Okay. All right. And those a question as far as some of those bars host criminals as well. So they might say, listen, we are in a controlled setting. We are over 18 or over 25, but still there's a lot of crime that emanates from, this joint.
Yes.
Yeah. So responding to that in like 30 seconds, because I'm pressed. I don't even want to look at Anthony.
So of course there is the criminal element of it, and what then we are asking the public is to support the government when we enforce and aggressively deal with the criminals.
Okay. Do you offer protection to the whistleblowers? Because I know even for the illicit, booze back in our villages, they'll tell you, we will report, yes, but now.
No. The assurance to the public is that we will protect and conceal their identity, so that then we don't expose you to harm. But at the same time, particularly at the very local level, what we have also done with the police reforms is that we are also giving our chiefs and their assistant chiefs the power by also having policemen attached to them, so that then when they do the raids or when they try to do enforcement, then they also feel secure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Boniface. Eric, so many questions. I don't know how much time you need to answer, but can you please try?
For sure. I'll try to keep it very short.
Thank you.
I think the first thing for us, we're very keen on ensuring that self-regulation is the way to go. Because, for example, and back to what Mbaka was saying, there could be elements, one or two, which are prone to abuse, which is sad. But again, where self-regulation has worked, it has worked effectively. So if there are instances where, for example, because like ABAC is a member organization, but it doesn't represent all the alcohol manufacturers. It actually represents certain manufacturers who believe in a certain ideology. There are other manufacturers who are not our members, and probably they are doing something else differently. Okay. So self-regulation is the way for us to go. When it comes to taxes, I think there need to be a serious balance between what is the right tax level, because if you overtax something, people don't stop. They go for alternatives. And it's something that is so common even in other sectors. You'd find, especially for products like ourselves, where you find for a responsible consumer, it comes at the bottom end after they are paid school fees, they are paid, if it's mortgages, rent. So they always have the level of disposed income is actually very little. So some of them you'll find they might migrate to illicit, unfortunately, because they cannot be affording the legitimate alcohol. And when they migrate to illicit, they're now also exposed to other certain unfortunate aspects of illicit alcohol. And it's true, when you go to Mount Kenya, most of those people are actually drinking. Actually, the bars which are registered, they are closing down because you've overregulated this space. When there is harm, you'll always say, these are the places we need to regulate the bars. We need to close down the bars. We need to crack down the bars. It's good to always check on what they're doing. But the reality is, as you correctly pointed out, in Mount Kenya, people are not even drinking in the bars. There are other places. There are dens that are there. They're within the base that is there. And I can give you a practical scenario. Like there's a time in Embu where we realized somebody was selling alcoholic product in a powdered way, registered in a 5 kilo pack, and it has a bull or an animal, and it's sold through Agrovet. So you go to Agrovet, those who know what it is used for. Then the instructions at the back of the pack is put the 5 kilo in a 35 liter, leave it to ferment overnight. The next day it's like porridge, but it has alcohol. And you find the society, and it was something that was worrying, but thanks to the intervention of the government, the situation has actually gone down. It was worrying to us because we also not happy when you have a society, when you wake up in the morning, because it has touch. So somebody gets full while getting high. At about midday, people are getting full or getting high. In the evening, somebody doesn't take supper. They actually go there.
They drink.
So those are things that you'd find at times, sadly, when there are incidents that happen. Of course, we are all lumped up together, legitimate, illegitimate. We are told alcohol is bad. But the reality, it's responsible. If you consume it irresponsibly, if you get illicit. And to your question and the example you gave, when I started, I said 59% of alcohol consumed in Kenya is illicit. So even as we sit here as ABAC, we are only playing in the 41%. And for sure, if you have something and you do it, consume it irresponsibly, it has effects. Even your car, it has a speedometer. Maybe it reads 180 to 20 to 40, but you don't drive at 180, even in the highway. Try it. It will be bad for you. So it's us promoting that responsible culture. For sure, when you're asking the question about
why don't you use that pass of lever?
You see, when you advertise, you want to promote a certain responsible behavior. So it will be not one of those moments where, for example, I can advertise myself and Carol, taking this. But I wouldn't want to have, like for us, you can't even get cartoon characters to advertise alcohol. Because us alcohol manufacturers and ASABAC members, we have the responsible marketing code, and we know cartoons are mainly attracting babies. We will never use cartoon characters to advertise alcohol. Same way, we wouldn't use a character that appears to be heavily intoxicated to promote alcohol, because that is not what we believe in. We know it's a reality that happens in the ground, but such people are our relatives, and they actually need help. Not to use them as an example for people to be like them. So it's always, we are very keen at ensuring that. Hey, to your question, it will be a perfect day for us when that 59% illicit is gone. We've seen other countries, and we always engage the government, and we are emulating even examples from neighbors. Even Tanzania, they don't have as much level of illicit as us, because there are other police interventions that have been done. On taxes, again, we might say there is a reduction, as the PS said on the beer side, but again, on spirits, there is actually a very huge increase of 73%, which is also something we are debating with the government to see what is the right level again. Because the people who are at the bottom of the value chain are actually consuming spirits. So if you increase excess tax by over 73% on a single go, you will actually lose them.
All right.
So those are things that we partner with the government, we work together, and we believe all of us have a role to play in the society.
All right. I mean, I still have so many questions, but especially for the last point that you say we can't use a character because now we are promoting these. But then again, through promotion of these, this person has found themselves in a space where they are. I think that is what he was asking. Why not paint a real picture? And I know you're talking about responsible. Every time we mention responsible, I'm tempted to look at Nkata to see, her reaction. But really, there was a question on prevention. right? How do we prevent ourselves or family members from getting into that space in the first place?
And thank you for that question. Prevention starts from, I think, from as soon as a child understands what alcohol is. You should start having that conversation, because now children are starting to use alcohol at a very young age. And I feel, okay, they learn a lot about drugs in school, but also you as a parent need to have that conversation with your child, especially if you know there is a history of alcohol use disorder in your family. You need to keep showing them the examples, reality. See, this is the result of using alcohol excessively. So making this conversation that you have at home, and letting the children know from a very young age that this is a result of alcohol use. Now, mental disorders are very closely associated with alcohol use. It can go either way. It's because you have a mental health disorder that you then develop alcohol use, or because of the alcohol use and you develop a mental disorder. Things like social anxiety, which you mentioned before when you were starting. Social anxiety is that one thing that will make most teenagers start using alcohol, because in teenage, there's a lot of social anxiety. I want to talk to a girl. I'm not sure if I'll be so confident. So I'll take some alcohol. I become confident. I can talk. Then eventually that young man realizes, then I have to keep drinking to sustain the same. So also allowing our children to learn such conditions exist and how to deal with them. So that if you identify your child is having an issue, then you're seeking the help from a psychologist, from a psychiatrist early enough, so then you're not dealing with a substance use disorder. And also now allowing our children to understand the emotions, to express the emotions from an early age. I think within our generation, as we were shut up a lot, so we didn't even know, when someone asks you how you're feeling, really, you're even surprised, like, okay, what am I supposed to say about it?
Okay.
Yeah, so just learning to express its emotions. Also finding that young people, when they become now adults, they're saying adulting is so hard. Is it because we have not allowed them to endure challenges from a young age, that now when they started seeing challenges when they're grown up, they're like, oh, so this is how adulting is. So can we also just normalize, it's okay to find a day difficult, talk about it, let's find solutions. So they're developing coping mechanisms from a young age and knowing, oh, this was a tough day, I can do 1, 2, 3 and feel better. Because then when you become adult, you learn, oh, I've had a hard day at work, I go drink.
That is not the only solution.
So things would be helpful, amongst others.
Okay. All right. I mean, we're so pressed time. We had a hard stop at 8. Carol, and just 30 seconds to speak on support, very, very briefly, and then we'll bring this to a close.
I think support is very key when you're dealing with recovery. Like I said, for me, my support system has been very instrumental to getting me where I am now. I have a problem with parents or guardians or significant others who have taken their loved ones to rehab, and then when you're called for family therapy, you don't show up. And when this person goes back into the world, they're coming back to the same family where you, as a guardian, refuse to show up for therapy. Why? You're so bitter about what this person did to you. And I like what Rev said over there, that the first people she talks to are the parents. Because like what we say, addiction, alcoholism is a family disease. It's not a spectator sport. If you're not infected, you're affected. And so why don't you all sit down and have therapy whereby I'm not happy with you because you did this? For me, I've been to rehab twice. So you can imagine, of course, my walk with my parents was not the easiest in the park. But we sat down at a point and we had to bear our burdens literally on the floor and discuss them. And that's why we are able to walk together today. But now if you're still hung up on what this person in addiction did to you, then chances are this person will keep relapsing until the cows come home, you see? So support is instrumental. You should get to understand addiction from the addicted person's point of view. And also we are not, I don't use this as an escape route of saying, oh, it's because I was struggling with alcoholism, so my people have to understand me. Even I need to reach a point where I realize I actually hurt my people. You see, there has to be that, we have to come together. So support is so important. I mean, I can't emphasize it anymore because of lack of time, but without proper support, then relapse will become the norm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Boniface, I would have given you the last word to really close this up. 10 seconds, is that enough?
No, I think this has been a very good engagement and conversation. And now that we are dealing with it as a government and as a society, it's incumbent upon all of us that as parents, we must do our bit. As the religious leaders, they have to do their part.
Okay.
As a government, and even the people who benefit from the trade in alcohol must do this.
Okay.
We are conducting our vetting exercise, and we appreciate the support that we've received so far from all the players, both at the national and the county governments. And we appeal to Kenyans to support this exercise because this country belongs to all of us, and let's support those who are already on the other end as a result of the addiction, so that then they become responsible Kenyans who can contribute to building this country.
Absolutely, very well said. And I think let's just appreciate our panelists for the day. Very insightful conversation. And I know really this doesn't end here, because if we were to sit here and talk about alcoholism and the sober truth, we'll be here until the following day, 72 hours later. But for now, allow us to say a special thanks really to my panelists, really driving this conversation, very important conversation that we can all relate to. And I'm gonna say special thank you to you, Boniface, Dr. Raymond Omollo, Principal Secretary, Internal Security and National Administration, Eric Githua, Chairman, Alcoholic Beverages Association of Kenya, Dr. Catherine Mbaka, Consultant Psychiatrist right here at Aga Khan University Hospital, and Caroline Kagia, who is a Consultant Psychiatrist at Aga Khan University Hospital. No, sorry, now I'm promoting you to Aga Khan University Hospital.
Not as though they are.
Right? And data therapist, speaker, and wellness coach as well. And not forgetting subject experts in the audience, Dr. Christopher Pio, hepatologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital, Reverend Mary Wanjiru Gitao from the Destiny Recovery Center, Mr. Japhet Murimi from Tigoni Treatment and Rehab Center Limited, and not forgetting Katha Mwendwa, recovering addict and rehabilitation practitioner. Thank you very much as well for your time. And a special thanks to you, audience, for being patient. We're so sorry to have overrun, but allow me to also welcome Professor Peter Gatiti to close the session for us.
Thank you very much. Let us appreciate the panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an evening well spent. I believe you all agree with me. So, as we conclude today's lecture series on alcoholism, I'm honored to be delivering this vote of thanks, simply because alcoholism has affected some members of my family, even people who are close to me. And sometimes, because I'm a stickler to the rule, I tend to be very frustrated to an extent when they see me, they tend to run away. But from what I've learned, at least I've got some pointers on how to deal with some of these things. As such, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude on all of us, to our panelists, because your presentations and thoughtful discussions have shed light on the complex issue of alcoholism, providing us with a deep understanding and commitment to addressing this challenge. Indeed, when we have the PS of internal, who is very humble, by the way, the PS of internal, when we talk of serikali, what you think of serikali is not what we are seeing. And to an extent, we feel he has almost assured us that we cannot fight alcoholism with guns. It requires, I would call it, an all-round approach. So, asante sana bwana PS. To our deans, Professor Nancy Buka, you are the key pillar of the Live Conversations forums. Thank you for the support and guidance. Your leadership has been instrumental to these forums. I would also like to acknowledge the departmental chairs of the Medical College, who have provided us with invaluable and advisory support, and to the organizing committee. Your expertise and counsel are greatly appreciated. A special thank you to the organizing committee. Your hard work has paid off, and dedication in putting together this important event that has been outstanding. May I kindly ask members of the organizing committee to stand so that we can appreciate them? I think we are inside the room. Thank you. Asanteni sana. Margaras, well done. To all the attendees, thank you for participating and for your engagement. It was really engaging. To an extent, you had to cut short some of the questions. Some of my buddies had 3, 4, 5 questions.
I apologize.
Your presence here today made a difference in your commitment to running. We have all run something, including evidence-based rehabilitation at Egon. So many things we've run today. So lastly, let us carry forward the knowledge and insights gained today and work together so that we can create a better Kenya, which is healthier and more informed. As we conclude tonight's event, I would like to inform all of the visitors, all of you, who might have parked at the basement of the university, that one of our colleagues, Mary Motua, if she's around here, please Mary stand. Mary will be issuing you with a token that would enable you to proceed without having to pay parking fees. And Mary, you are being appreciated for that. Yeah. And I'm informed, when you do not forgive me if I don't say that, that refreshments are served and for all of us on the ground floor. And we are going to have the refreshments until 9 p.m. And our security will not forgive me if I don't say this, that our visitors and guests are requested to depart by 9:30 p.m. when our live conversations Q&A desk will also close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. But before we depart, allow me to invite Professor Nancy Buka, to invite Robbie and Dr. Benjamin Washira to join me so that we can give our input panelists some token of appreciation through mementos. Kagia, so join us, please. I really please coordinate this one for us.
Okay, so let's start with Eric Wister. So if you go on stage when you're giving them so that the cameraman can get you. Yes. And look at George here. Look at George. Thank you very much. Let's go to Caroline. I know she has to manage her microphone, but thank you very much, Peter. I can see you're a gentleman. Alan, look at the camera.
Thank you.
Next, let's do Dr. Catherine. That we'll finish with the PS. Because I want to be the next PS. That's when I'm in a PS. If you remember, I come last. Thank you, Abby. Everyone has decided that the stairs are better.
I was advised.
George is here, so. And because somebody here has cups, he gets to give 2 people. So, to the wing, with winning. Oh. Yeah, I said because I want to be the next PS, I give the PS. So it's fine. So thank you so much. We thank you, worship lady. She's done very well. Thank you. You're looking like you're afraid. And to myself, look at the camera. Or the camera. The 2 of us. But it's not mine. It's his.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're going to have a group photo here on this side with the panelists and the deans and the guidance clubs. Thank you so much. Please. August.
So I want to start with the panelists alone. The panelists alone, please. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get the POs first, then when I'm done with my things. So other panelists, let me have the panelists photo, then we'll go down and he's coming down, so don't worry. The PS is coming down, so don't worry. Let me first have my photo, then we'll come down to you. So the panelist photo.